Do you know what that's for? Okay. Okay.
Stupid.
I heard that.
Regarding the Kemper Road sidewalk, 5:30.
But we're going to do this
Yeah.
right after.
Yeah, right after, right. That was a plan.
We're getting ready to start now. Everyone at home, please mute yourself. Okay, yes. Perfect, thank you. Mike Cheney is on. Good evening and welcome to the City of Sharonville's council meeting. If everyone would please rise, we're going to have a moment of silent prayer and then the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Irie. Thank you. To the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Here.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Lippert,
Here.
Mr. Duda,
Here.
Mr. Cook,
Here.
Mrs. Knight,
Here.
Mr. Schmidt.
Here.
Approval of the minutes from November 10th council meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to those? Seeing none, they stand as written and distributed. We're going to move on to reports and communication. Mayor Hardman.
Thank you, Vicki. So the first item I have this evening is there obviously has been we started a while back a Good Neighbor Award where we have asked members of our community to reach out to us and let us know if they know of someone who is deserving of a little bit of special recognition that we can provide to them, even though sometimes they aren't really looking for it. And I think one of those people is the one who was nominated. So Shayak Duda, our own council member, is the one who actually provided this Good Neighbor Award nomination. And so what we ask is give us a description as to why you think this person is deserving. And the comments were as follows. Outstanding service and philanthropy to needy residents in Sharonville, the VFW, and overall concern for many people in our community. During the holidays and times of need, such as in 2020, he has stepped up extraordinarily and coordinated many acts of giving voluntarily. He's attentive and involved in happenings in our city. He helped run the VFW and personally has been great to learn from and interact with while serving on city council. As Shayak got to know him, his neighbors and community respect him as well. I can say I have 4 children, or 2 children specifically, who greatly respect him because they ended up at his house on Halloween and he dumped all the rest of the candy for them. So that's just one of the ways he reaches out to his community. So I know you're on with us here, Mike, but it is my pleasure to present you. Eventually, we're going to get this to you, this Good Neighbor Award to Mike Cheney in recognition of your exceptional contributions, assisting your neighbors and improving our Sharonville community. So Mike, thank you very much for all that you do, and I'm sure you will continue to do. And like I said when I started this, I know that you are never one looking for kudos and pats on the back. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. And I wish we had more people in the world that did things like that. And it is an honor to know you. It's an honor to present you with this Good Neighbor Award. And I know it came from Shyok, but I think probably most of the council members and other elected officials in this room would say very similar things based on their knowledge of you and what you do for our community. So congratulations, Mike. Anything you want to say to in acceptance of this great and amazing honor?
It's not letting me see him or mute him.
Oh my. Or unmute him?
It won't let him unmute. They've got to.
Well, he's muted now. Mike, are you
Mike?
there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
The only thing I could really say is many years ago, I was at my wit's end. We'd had some traumatic life events, and I reached out on social media because I didn't know what else to do. And strangers answered that call. And these people remain my friends even today. And it taught me something, that you have to reach out in order to receive. And I thought, well, I can turn that around. And how many other people can I help in honoring those that helped me? And I found out you can do a lot with a little. And really, it's just taking that first step. Lots of people out there want to help. There's a lot of people that need help. And we just have to stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And again, it's quite, like I said, it's a privilege to be able to offer that little bit of appreciation to you. Thanks for all that you do. Glad you could join us via Zoom this evening to accept it. And we'll make sure we get you that so you can put it in a nice plaque up on your wall. A couple other things for my report this evening. Some of you, if not all of you, received an urgent email from me today. And it wasn't just you as elected officials, but some of our employees also received it. Some of you, including some of our employees, decided to say, yeah, sure, I'm available. What do you need? To which I then apparently said something else. And then if you responded again, I then asked you about getting some gift cards for me. That was not me. As you all know, I think we've gotten emails out to all of you to let you know that. We certainly are looking into it, but obviously somebody got a hold of what I can only assume would be my city email. And because the context that it went out to probably would have been within my city email. So we are working on that. What I would say and what there is to learn from that is just be cautious. I know that the first email was a little generic, but in today's day and age, people are pretty savvy about what they do to try to suck you in. In my full-time job, what I do, I watch some really dumb things happen as far as people doing things because they think they're talking to their employer or something along those lines. So if there's something suspicious, number one, don't respond to that email. Send me another separate email or send the other person a separate email with a contact that you know exists. Because I know that for a fact, the email, if you would have clicked my name, you would have seen that it was going to a completely different email address. It was like policechief something or other at gmail.com. So, so that's just something to be aware of, just a little bit of phishing and spamming education for not just all of us, but for anyone who's out there listening. And to my knowledge, nobody sent gift cards I certainly didn't get any, and hopefully whoever is trying to get them didn't get any. This past week, we learned, or within the last week, we learned of 2 departures from city government. One of whom is Sarah Dirks, our city planner. She has taken a job in Arizona at a little town outside of Phoenix, I believe it was. And she will be leaving us on December 11th, I think is her final date with the city. Sarah has done a fantastic job in this new role as a city planner. It was a new position that we created. She's done a lot of great work with regard to our comprehensive plan, some of the initial work in our downtown, the bike feasibility plan, just all kinds of things that she's had her hands in over the last almost 3 years that she's been with us. We knew in creating this position, it was an entry-level position, that we were going to see some rotation in this job, and hopefully we would keep good people there to help us in continuing to plan for the city. So this is a great opportunity for Sarah in her professional development. She had very nice things to say about the city and her time with us. She has referred us already to 2 potential individuals to take her place. That are folks that either have been part of the city in co-op positions or currently moving into co-op positions. So she's been a great addition to the city of Sharonville. So I think if you want to reach out to her over the next couple of weeks, now is the time to do it, to thank her for the service that she's done to Sharonville. The other notification we received is that after 24 years as our clerk of courts, Linda Lutz will be retiring effective December 31st of this year. So Linda has also done a fantastic job representing the city of Sharonville as far as putting into place so much of what makes our mayor's court work. I think what she has done, what she has helped to do is take a court that I think is very easily maligned around our state when it comes to mayor's courts. And what their purpose is and what they do for the communities that they serve. But I think what Linda has done very well over the last 24 years is to present herself and present Sharonville Mayor's Court as a very professional and capable court. And that's what it does. And I think part of that is due to the great work that she has done with the Clerk of Court's office. We wish her all the best in the next bit of retirement. So, you know, in COVID days, it's hard to have parties and all those kind of things that we like to do with longtime employees. We are still having a brunch. I think as of right now, we're still planning on having a holiday brunch. So anyone who will be there, hopefully will get a chance to say thank you to Linda for her service. But if you want to reach out individually, now would be a good time to do that as well. Finally, I would be requesting that we go into executive session to discuss some employment discipline issues with regard to public employees under the Ohio Revised Code at the end of our meeting. There will be no expected business that would be coming out after that time. And that's all I have for this evening, other than to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Are there any questions for the mayor? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to Mr. Lucas, our Safety Service Director.
Thank you. Before we get into the legislation this evening, per the Law Committee's request, we do have a discussion item pertaining to the Cultural Arts Center, as well as an update on our small business relief program. In your packet, there was some written documentation from the Cultural Arts Center that you all have in front of you. This evening, it looks like we have 3 board members in attendance to specifically talk about their request. Michelle Taylor may be on via Zoom. She thought she would be attending either in person or via Zoom, but if not, we have 3 members of, okay, Virgil's holding up his phone. So I'll just turn it over to them to talk about their request.
Thank you, Jim. Clearly, it's my magnetic personality, huh? The microphone doesn't like me. Thank you, Jim. Thank you for this opportunity to talk. I do have with us tonight, we've got Jen Catanzaro and Pam Eisen, who are on our board and are critical members. Just worked their fingers to the bone. Like yesterday when they were putting up decorations and planting mums that were coming out of pots that they were decorating, they couldn't lose them, so they had to plant them. And so anyway, we have a working board that's willing to really get in and make a difference. Our current board makeup's 14 people. We also have Matthew and Michelle Taylor, who work for the Art Center, and they're the ones that really make so much happen over there. And Michelle and Matthew are actually on a call right now, listening in, and if anyone has any questions for them specifically, we will address that. As far as, it's been a tough year for the Art Center. I have, I guess, been duly nominated to speak tonight because a year ago they made me president, and 4 months later, COVID hit. So it's been a tough year, and but we've got a good team. We've got 14 working board members. I think all of them would have been willing to be here, but you don't have enough seats, I don't think, for another 11 people. So we told them we need to navigate this. Our big thing is we're proud to showcase our 100-year-old building. In fact, one of the things we're going to do this year was have a party for our 100th birthday party for our building. And that, of course, got canceled. We're serving 10 to 13,000 people a year in that building. We see ourselves as a strong economic driver for the downtown, in addition to, preserving a historic building and repurposing it for a viable use. And we've had so much that's happened since COVID hit. Our Spotlight on the Arts, our big gala at the convention center got canceled this year. And in addition to that, all of our theater was completely shut down for, well, it's supposed to be 9 weeks, but theaters weren't allowed to open that quick. So we weren't allowed to open until October. And so we had one event, and now as we navigate COVID protocols, it's been a challenge to keep it. We've had to delay a couple performances. We live on ticket sales. We're there to serve the kids, but what pays for all of the bills on that building are ticket sales. And so for that reason, we're struggling this year. We have 75% of what happens in the building is children's theater. But that requires a strong partnership with Performing Arts, Inc., which is run by Tina LaConde. And they are, we would call them our largest tenant. We call them our partner. Anyway, Performing Arts, Inc. is challenged with the fact that Hamilton County has tighter restrictions on COVID protocols than Butler County. And the fitness center up there has a lot of advantages. They don't have our location, but they have a larger seating, they have a liquor license, they have a lot of different things and lighter protocols. So our protocols, with a variance from the Hamilton County Department of Health, which we're grateful for, took our governor's allowed 15% of our seats, which is 22 seats to be occupied, to 30%. So we can go up to 46 seats out of 150. So now when we do 3 shows, we can sell 138 seats instead of 2 shows at 300. And that's just a real, we just can't put these children through 4 or 5, 6 performances. And so 3 is about as many as we can go for them. And the parents don't want to buy tickets to 12 performances. So 3 shows per cast, but that is still not even half the tickets that we had before. So we've upped our price a few dollars for a ticket. We've done a lot of different things. Our business community stepped up this fall and gave us some huge support on our community outreach and we did a fundraising, a mailing a virtual fundraising campaign. And by the way, Mayor, thank you for your contribution. And, you know, and Vicki, yours, and so many other people. So thank you. And anyway, our big concern right now, just to get straight to the point, is our fixed expenses. Our fixed expenses are basically our mortgage, our utilities, and our insurance. And our mortgage is about $1,800 a month. And I had it spelled out here. We've got $1,800 for the mortgage, and we've got Michelle, can you hear me? What am I missing here? It's a total of 1,200 utilities, 600 is for, and $600 is for insurance. And so it's hard to, whoops, I'm sorry, say it again. Thank you. I knew I was wrong on something. Thank you. So it's 1,200, 800, and 600 for insurance. And so that's the, I mean, that's the heart of our fixed cost. From there, you know, we are working real hard on bringing enough revenue to keep our employees working. Our utilities get higher again, go back to 2019 levels now that we can perform, even though we can't fill all the seats, we still have to run the ventilation system, actually more than before. And so our utilities go back up. And so that's where we are. And so we're looking at it and we're saying, if you have anything that you can help us with, we would appreciate it. We wanted to give you a benchmark of what the costs are that we are dealing with, so that way you have an understanding of our budget. Our budget typically runs $8,000 to $10,000 a month on good years. So when we start talking about our fixed costs at 1,800, 624, another 600, we're up $3,000 a month. So just know that that's a heart of our concern, is paying those fixed costs, so we can stay alive and we can do the great things we've been doing, which is bring so much to the downtown. Any questions?
Just so I understand, so the numbers, so the fixed costs are about $31,200 a year. Is that the number that we're dealing with from that's mortgage, utilities, and insurance? So $1,200, $800, $600, $2,600 times 12, 31.
I'm sorry, I found it on this page. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's 1,800 for mortgage, it's 1,200 for utilities, 600 for insurance. So forgive me, that's 3,600 a month. And our normal budget, again, is running 8,000 to 10,000, Pam? 10,000, 120,000 a year is our typical annual budget to operate the place, pay our people, and do the programming we need.
So what's the status of I mean, how much is left on the principal of the mortgage? Is that coming
The principal of the
down?
mortgage is right at 275,000. Yes, 275. Our building is actually valued at like 600 or 800. So, I mean, on paper, we look really good on a balance sheet. But it's the cash flow.
No, I understand. Yeah. I mean, and I'll just say what you and your entire board have done is amazing. I mean, I think what the theater has done, as far as what I think you, from your original vision, and others that were around you from a decade ago. I don't know how long it's been at this point. I think it's there. I mean, it's what you wanted. It's what we as a city wanted to see. It really is a draw to our downtown, and you all should be commended for it. And I think we do have ways that to address the concerns that have existed because of COVID that wouldn't have existed otherwise. So I think just council wanted to hear from you all as to what those needs were, and then ultimately I think have a discussion about where we might be able to find some ability to do that.
Well, thank you. Well, where we are right now is we're going to make it through 2020. As crazy as it's been. 2021 gets a little sketchy just because as COVID doesn't want to settle down, we don't know if the governor's going to shut us down again. As it is, we're kind of shutting ourselves down because if kids get quarantined because they've been around somebody in their own personal lives they can't perform. So then we end up, postponing plays, not because of what's happening in our building, but because of, kids that are quarantined because of their extended family. But ultimately, we're not sure we can do the gala next year. We don't know if the community events like the car show and the Sharon Fest and all those things will happen and allow us to raise some money there. We don't know. And you don't either. And we understand that. We're not asking for, anybody to venture a guess. All we know is that we have been surviving since 2008. And as some of you have been around a while know, the first few years were somewhat rocky. But, we have a board that is just a board of rock stars. And they just have come forward, not only in work ethic, but also in financial support in so many different ways. We've got this board that has really done a lot. I don't want them to burn out. And I don't want to lose our two key players in there, Matthew and Michelle, because they're the reason we're still here right now. When we sat down with them back in April and said, we can't have any plays. What are we going to do? And they said, you're going to lay us off. And, well, what would we do if we didn't lay you off? What do we do to be relevant in this community? Next thing we know, we've got coloring pages every day going up on the online site. We got a contest for art in the yard, and we've got all these different things. And then we ended up with, a grant to buy the camera equipment and the microphones to set up the loft upstairs as a live performance TV set up, so that way we could create virtual performances and these kids could practice on Zoom, come in and be able to perform it, and it would go online and everyone could see it there. But when that happened, we were getting $40. We were getting $500 for a virtual performance instead of 300 tickets sold at $10. So there's a big difference in revenue. But if it wasn't for Matthew and Michelle, we wouldn't have been relevant this year, and we wouldn't have grown in our ability to not only fundraise, but also to hit the ground running with live performances. So we don't want to lose our staff because they're our lifeblood. We don't want to burn out our board. And if you've got anything you can assist with, we'd be thrilled. We're not asking for a specific amount. We just want you to understand the heart of our issue. That's our big concern is our fixed cost. From there, that's from there, the variable cost, we got to raise it to pay it. We know that. Any other questions?
Anybody? Mr. Lippert?
Not really a question, but a comment. We had an extended discussion in law committee about helping out the Cultural Arts Center. I was a very strong maybe. So as well as the next kind of topic, the helping out of the businesses, which at the time I was opposed to using general fund dollars. After discussion with Madam President, we talked about the shift of the original CARES fund dollars going into the general fund. So what I would propose is that we make a referral to either finance or law committee as far as a fast track for another round of funding, and open up that funding based on updated guidance from the powers that be. Scott, I don't know who updated the guidance that said nonprofits were okay now.
We are now the powers that be.
We are now the powers that be.
We
So
got some updated.
We are no longer bound by,
We're not restricted.
all of our CARES Act money has been accounted for, and because of guidance we got at the last minute, that allows us to use that for fire and police salaries, because we were in limbo for a long time about whether or not that was accessible. So all of the CARES Act money that we've received, not all of it, all the additional stuff that we didn't give out to businesses in the first round of grant programming, all the stuff that wasn't to purchase things like the air filter systems, the heaters, the tents. So things that we didn't use for that, went to police and fire salaries. So about $700,000 worth of CARES Act money went to the city of Sharonville to pay salaries of police and fire. So I think what we'll be asking of law or finance, wherever you guys decide you want to take this, is that we look at that pot of money, because we exceeded, we expect we're going to exceed. Have we exceeded at this point our revenue budget for 2020? So we expect we will exceed our revenue budget for 2020. We have, as always, have kept our expenses at budget or under. So the $700,000 was icing on the cake for us as the city of Sharonville. But we know that folks like the Fine Arts, Cultural Arts Center, it's a hard habit to break.
Well, we are right now still Fine Arts Council doing business as Cultural Arts Center. One of our board members is Jay Wampler, and Jay is helping us get our name officially changed, that kind of thing. So that, you will see that transitioning.
So we know there's a need there. We know there's a need. There's still additional businesses that had some, we know there's businesses that didn't meet the criteria that we established for the first round of funding, that we think are probably worthwhile businesses for us to look at. They're part of Sharonville. We want them to be a part of Sharonville. We want them to survive through COVID, that it would be worthwhile looking at them. The question is going to be how you want to do that. I mean, do we include nonprofits within a bigger opening? Do we look specifically at the Fine Arts Center to just provide some type of grant and then deal with the businesses separately? That's something you guys are going to have to decide. It sounds like, and that's why I think you wanted this discussion from Law Committee, was why I came here, to get a sense of if everybody feels that way, that we'll send it back to a committee for you guys to hash out that discussion and bring back something to you. I would hope we bring that back at our next council meeting and be able to move relatively quickly to make everybody whole. But so that's the resources that we would be asking to pull from. It would be coming from the general fund, but in all honesty, it's because we received money that is helpful. It's great. But we know there's businesses that are hurting. We know there's nonprofits that are hurting. And they could use it more than we can use it from the city of Sharonville standpoint, from a government standpoint. So, yeah, so thank you for that comment. I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in.
Tank, Sue, Mike, anybody want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, thank you. I was going to make the recommendation that it go back in front of finance, and that way we can get a better idea in a meeting on how much we could look at contributing to the Fine Arts Cultural Arts Center.
Okay.
I'll make a comment if I could, that we were back in the days when we were worried about keeping the gas and electric on. Do you remember that, Verge?
Well, I remember board meetings where it was like, they're shutting the water off. Whose turn is it to pay at this time?
Yeah,
As a board members, we passed it around. When the music stopped, somebody paid the bill.
I think it's very fair to say that then we developed a business plan, and it really evolved to the point where 2020 was looking like a great year. You had 49 of the 52 weeks and 9 of the 12 months all locked away. It was going to be just an absolutely outstanding year. But having come and seen how far we have come back when we were getting calls to help pay the utilities and understanding what our limitations were, it's really a magnificent accomplishment. And I think the most important thing is that it's such a vital asset to the city of Sharonville. And what impresses me most and makes me the happiest is all the involvement of the children. Because I think that is just a fantastic opportunity to allow these young people to grow, to have confidence in their abilities, and to feel good about being with the other people. And it's just a wonderful asset to the city. So I know I completely support it. If they want to go to the finance committee, that's fine. You're more than welcome at law committee. We've already kind of had some discussions there. I think Tank and I are both on finance with Mr. Cook. It's his committee. I have law committee with Mr. Wilson and Mr. Lippert. So either committee, I think, is going to be very favorably inclined to help. It's just a question of how we can do it. Again, as I like to refer to it as a subset of the general fund, if you will, a allowed subset of the general fund. So when you just say coming from the general fund, it becomes kind of cloudy at times. And then when we clear that up in our minds, we're fine. So again, I completely support it. I'm very happy to see how far you've come. It's, there are very few things in life do you see come out of the ashes such a wonderful thing. And I really do support all that we can do for you, maximize what we can do for you.
Thank you for the kind words. Well, if there's any questions or if someone wants me or any of us to come to another meeting, just let us know.
We will get this on the agenda. I'd like to do it as soon as possible. So if everybody looks at your schedules next week, sometime, Dave?
Would we want to do like a budget and finance, and then would we need law right after that?
We
Is that
could.
necessary?
Actually, we're going to be meeting with the residents that will be affected up on Kemper Road on December 8th. And I believe that's at 5:30. So we could even, tie this in with law committee that evening. So maybe finance could meet before that. So that's why I'm saying next week, maybe finance meet and come together with, not definitely for the fine arts, cultural arts, but also for our businesses that we were not able to support this last time because of they were a sole proprietor or they had 30 employees instead of 25, something like that, or they didn't fulfill all the requirements, but now they have met those requirements. So we can look at those businesses, come up with our own game plan now, because then it would be us driving this bus and Scott and Jim Doughton probably, and be more of a benefit to our community. That's why we have this money here. That's what we should be doing with it, is supporting our community and our businesses. And yes, you are a charity. Yes, you are a 501(c)(3), but you are also the anchor property to the coming in of the downtown loop of City of Sharonville. And it's a huge, huge asset to have you down there. And I'm thinking, since we have Adora and the other people sell liquor, y'all should think about selling liquor too with our Dora. I'm just going to throw it out there. The ladies agree with me, Virgil. You're going, no, the ladies are agreeing.
I'm smiling because the ladies back there, before it became a vaping location, had their eyes on the old Provident Bank, and they intended to put up a beer garden along the creek between that bank building and the theater, and use the bank building as additional rehearsal space and stuff like that. But it is no longer available. It's not available. So,
Well,
but I will just say, when I was supportive years ago on this project, I wasn't the driver. It wasn't my vision. I bought into the vision by other people who you remember. But nevertheless, I bought into it because I thought, yeah, we're going to save a historic building, but you have to have a purpose for it. You can't just save the baby whale just for the baby whale. And, so we're going to save the history and there are people, old Sharonville, that really love the fact that building's saved. But I thought it can be a nice anchor for the businesses downtown. And, we've actually given a lot of businesses a reason to stay open after 5. And then what really surprised me was that we've got people that came out to participate with this theater that I never saw in the community before, all the years I was involved with the city. And the reason was because they weren't people in sports, and they weren't into this and that. They were not in the things I normally saw. They were going outside Sharonville to be served. And now those folks have just come out and just embraced this building. And I have just been delighted with the way it's grown. And once we moved away from what I'll call adult theater and focused on children's theater, it just took off. And that's our sweet spot. That's where we belong. That's what we serve best. So.
Perfect.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Vicky, real quick before Virgil leaves, I was going to make a suggestion. If administration can get us a list together for budget and finance of the different businesses that we might be able to assist with, that would be very, very helpful.
Well, we already have a list that have applied and we're not able to get funds, so we'll work with that first.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Lucas. No, you guys may leave if you would like. Thank you so much. Great to see you all. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
So we touched on both of the discussion items, so I'll just go into the legislation. There's 8 or 9 pieces of legislation, depending on one of them this evening. The first one, Ordinance 2020-38E, deals with our Houck Road project. It's the third reading of the appropriation, directing pretty much Warren Ritchie to proceed in that manner. Warren Ritchie is on via Zoom this evening. Can talk about the process, where we're at, where we're going, and then answer any questions you may have this evening.
He is on Zoom. Mr. Ritchie, are you able to hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, Jim had asked that I participate mostly to answer any questions that the city officials might have. The procedurally, if the council passes the final reading or passes the ordinance this evening, we'll be ready to proceed. We're working with a designated agent, I guess, selected by the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation that has had most of the contact with the various property owners. We need to be in a position relative to ODOT to be able to take possession of these properties for the progress of the project by early to mid-January. So I would envision, if we have the authorization to file the appropriation petitions, that we would file them in mid to late December, deposit the appraised value with the clerk of courts, and then the agent is able to certify to the Ohio Department of Transportation that we have rights of possession and they can proceed. Normally, we would normally have had a lot more success, I think, in coming to an agreement with property owners in this type of action. But if you envision the properties that are in this area, we're talking about fast food restaurants and hotels, and many of them are owned in part by larger corporations, and it's been more difficult for the agent to bring them to the table for an agreement. We're still hopeful that many of the property owners will come to an agreement with the city and ODOT's agent, but if they don't, we're ready to proceed and file the petitions for appropriation.
Are there any questions?
Just one additional comment. I'm handing out the current status. As of a couple days ago, there may be 1 or 2 that have progressed since then. But Warren, correct me if I'm wrong, slightly over half of the properties need further action with the appropriation.
The last, you might have more current information, Jim, than I, but as of either Friday or first thing Monday morning, it looked like we'd be filing on 19 property owners. And that is slightly more than half of the total. Does that answer your question, Jim?
Yes. Any questions regarding that ordinance?
Does anybody have questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Warren.
Okay.
Moving on, ordinance 2020-42 is the fee schedule for CT consultants. That's a third reading. Ordinance 2020-48 was written in error on our part at the last council meeting dealing with the GVA debt. Scott's here this evening to talk about that again. We originally had that as 3 readings with 30-day effectivity, and we need that in place prior to the end of the year, and Scott can provide the rest of the details.
Good evening. The ordinance itself, it spells out what the debt service will be the rest of the next 2 years. We are actually at the end of the GVA repayment that began back in 1984. About the same time we stopped having property taxes, so it was a very busy time. I know a lot of times we thought that the GVA would never be fully repaid. So this reduces what will be paid in 2020 down to $20,000, and the remaining $100,000 will be scheduled to be repaid next year. Any questions on that piece of legislation?
Thank you. Yes, I don't think we ever thought it would be repaid.
Scott, why don't you address 2020 R27?
Yeah, this resolution is opposing the proposed Senate Bill 352. I don't know that I can say it any more eloquently than the mayor did last meeting about the concerns of the instructions now from the legislature are for companies to continue withholding where somebody, where their their standard work location pre-COVID is. And I think it's our expectation, our hope that as long as there's an intent for those employees, those jobs to come back, to have a place to come back to work in the city, we would like to see that continue. There's obviously lots of stakeholders across the state that are very concerned of that issue, and a lot of the potential lawsuits that may come out in that in the next year as well. Thank you.
Anybody have questions? No, we're good. Thank you.
Ordinance 2020-54 is our annual salary ordinance. Noah's here this evening to talk about that. There are some changes this year.
Good evening. As Jim said, there's a few changes, kind of an annual tradition to try to make this the best salary ordinance ever. And I think every year we've been accomplishing that so far. This year we've moved the 2% cost of living adjustment directly into the salary ordinance instead of doing it in a separate ordinance. So you'll see that in section 2. We have a new position added under administration, which is a payroll and benefits specialist position. This is created to help us attract a new person for payroll who has a benefits background as well when we have a retirement that we expect to come up here in 2021. It also creates the position of tax analyst in the tax department. This is a position that will be performing the same work as administrative clerk secretaries in the tax department, but it's recognizing that that work is kind of distinct from a lot of the other tasks that we ask from our administrative clerk secretaries and other departments. Continuing on. We have updated the titles in the fire department for the captain's position to battalion chief. It just generally reflects what people know those positions as in other departments, so that when our captains are out intermingling at trainings and other events, they'll be recognized for the position that they truly are in. And the last real major change to the ordinance, aside from a couple of other retitles for positions, is section 12, which creates the authority for the safety service director to establish part-time equivalent positions for any full-time positions that are contained in the salary ordinance, should we have a vacancy during the year. And upon review, administration finds that the city would be better served by filling a position either with one or multiple part-time positions. It only allows that to be filled up to the level of budgetary authority that's offered or approved rather by council. So wouldn't be any additional dollars spent, but allows the city to be a little bit more nimble in our hiring practices. Be happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Council at home, any questions? All right, I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, ordinance 2020-55E deals with the budget discussion regarding the annual Christmas gift for this year. Scott talked about resolution 27. Regarding resolution 2020 R28, that was to ask the state to amend House Bill 197 dealing with virtual meetings. The state took care of that last week via House Bill 404. I'm not sure if DeWine has talked about or has signed that yet, but we may want to consider eliminating or taking that off the agenda this evening because the state took care of that. Resolution 2020 R29E is an annual piece of legislation that's required by the Ohio Revised Code for surplus equipment that we sell on the internet. The ORC asks for a resolution each year. And then resolution 2020 R30 is simply thanking the city of Blue Ash for being so generous as it pertains to our fire department renovation. We intend to take this resolution, if it's passed, to the city at one of their upcoming council meetings. That's it.
You taking them some cookies? I'm just throwing that out there. Be a nice gesture.
We don't like them that much.
Mr. Lippert, you had a question?
Again, more of a comment
No, you're
on
fine.
ordinance 2020-42, the CT consultants fee schedule. So I personally am in support of that. As far as a little bit of history, law committee asked Jim to get another engineering group to talk to us, and he was good enough to bring Kleiner's group. Mr. Casto, the principal, in last time, gave a presentation. There's a desire, at least amongst myself, and I think some of the colleagues that I have on council, to diversify the availability of engineering options for the city. So based on the discussion we had at law committee, I think the best way to do that is to pass the non-exclusive fee schedule for CT consultants. I asked Mr. Casto to get documentation to either Mr. Pietmeyer or Mr. Lucas about their fee schedule, which we could in turn evaluate a law committee, put back on the council agenda, pass 2 non-exclusive fee schedules. Now, my understanding at that point is administration is not under an obligation to use either of them for any percentage of the work that is done by engineers within the city. But if one is used to the exclusivity of the other one, that's something we talk about next year. So that's my piece.
Mr. Schmidt?
Someone wants it. I think Dave and Shock probably were the only two who didn't see the presentation or hear the presentation. But again, what Mr. Lippert says is accurate. The support of the other members, I also support that. I believe Mike does too. So having the law committee seeking this option either way for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Tankersley agrees with what Casey and Paul said also.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that all, Jim? Okay. And for my report this evening, we've got a couple things. First of all, just so everyone knows that is elected, you will not be getting the Kroger gift card that you're about to pass. We are not getting that as elected officials. We cannot give ourselves a raise, and that comes under payroll. So you will not be getting that gift. So blame me if you want. It was my idea not to give it to you. And because it would be like giving yourselves a raise, and we cannot do that legally. So, so we're not going to do that. Mrs. Buhite sent out a calendar. We did make one correction. Our August dates are going to be the 10th and the 31st. So it will be the second and the last Tuesdays in August. So the 10th and the 31st. Looking at June and July and December, did anyone have any suggestions or questions or anything on those? We thought those were pretty spaced out, so if we had important business, we could handle it. And that's why it was done that way. If not, I'm going to entertain a voice vote to accept our council dates for next year. Is there a motion? So moved by Mr. Duda, second by Mr. Schmidt. All those in favor, yes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And it sounds like that's unanimous, so these will be our council dates next year. Thank you. And I just want to wish everyone a happy and blessed Thanksgiving. Huh? Oh, we can do OKI tonight. Would you like me to?
I didn't know.
Is there a motion? I am going to assume that Mr. Lippert would still like to be our OKI representative.
Yes, please.
Okay. Is there a motion, voice vote to accept Mr. Lippert as our OKI representative for next year? So moved by Mr. Cook, second by Mr. Schmidt. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
And our virtual people are saying aye also. So thank you, Mr. Lippert, for doing that for us. We do appreciate you. And that's one thing off your plate, Mrs. Buhite. And we're going to go on to our clerk of council, Mrs. Buhite.
Thank you. No report.
Okay, that's easy. Auditor, Mr. Cunningham.
Good evening, everybody. We are 83.33% through the year. Let me take this off for a minute. And having said that, we have only spent 69.3% in our general fund. And that is with making those transfers. This is another topic I wanted to discuss. I've talked about this before, and those transfers have been made. 2.3 million to capital. And we also made transfers to debt retirement, separation benefits, and facility improvements. And so that rounds out my report.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to our treasurer, Mr. Irie.
Good evening. As Mr. Cunningham noted, we're 88.33% through the year. Looking at the tax report, which was submitted to council, you'll note that our 2020 month to date is actually exceeded, our revenues have exceeded where we were in November of 19 by 7.12%. Our year to date in 2020 is down 4.93% compared to 19. But so far, looking at the tax report, our 20 year to date is ahead of our pace in 2016, 2017, and 2018. So we'll see if that holds out for the rest of 2020. The tax report also indicates that the lodging tax is down 33.75% for the year. On the treasurer's report, most of the funds continue to keep pace with our estimated revenue for the year. Notably, the general fund is at 89% of collected revenue for the year, and our, of course, we're 83.33% through the year. So we're on pace there, and most of the funds follow suit. And that is all of my report.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We're going to go to our law director, Mr. Pete Meyer.
Just one thing to follow up on what Casey said. I know in the other engineering group, it just made me think of this. He was asked, are there any things that you think that the other group, CT Consultants, is better at? And he actually admitted, I think he said traffic signals. He said if there's a problem with a traffic signal, the guy from CT is like the best in the state. So if that goes wrong, don't call us, call him. But I think it's one of the reasons we liked their presentation. There are some things they do better, but he acknowledged there are some things that C2 do better, so, or does better. So I do think that's a good, good recommendation to have one for both of them.
And he actually offered up to meet or do better than CT's prices.
Yes, because some of the ones on their list, I think currently were higher, and we said, hey, dude,
Yeah.
what goes here? He goes, we'll take care of that. So yeah, it was a good, good meeting. I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Perfect. The residents that wish to be heard this evening?
Jim Schmidt, 12215 Pickwick Place, Sharonville. It's been a while since I've addressed council. I'm glad to be here. When Mr. Lovett was here talking about the Fine Arts Center and whatever, at the very end, it came up about Dora. I have a concern with Dora. I don't understand it. Just a couple of weeks ago, and I was going to be here at the last council meeting, but I had to be in Columbus. A couple of weeks ago, I realized there's a sign on our property that says it's included in Dora. I have no idea why that is. I've driven around Sharonville. I found a total of 5 Dora signs. I drove up Creek Road a little bit to Maple Street and up Cornell to Maple. I saw no sign that says that Dora ends there. I have a problem with it. You know, we were not contacted as property owners. We were not contacted asking how we felt about Dora. Reading Road property. The sign is on a telephone pole between 109, between the flower shop and the restaurant, between Vern's Flowers and Athenian Restaurant on the back edge of what would be their lot, on the easternmost edge. Concern I have, couple concerns. The nearest, I don't know, there's only a couple places that are serving or selling alcohol now, but I assume that people could go to the liquor agency, the liquor store there. No? Okay, well, the Dora restaurants are a fair distance from our property. And what they have parking lots. There are city parking lots that would be closer. So why should our property be included? I have the concern that if somebody, and DORA stands for Designated Outdoor Refreshment Area. I assume refreshments does include alcohol. In fact, where it says no alcohol beyond this point. If somebody should happen to have too much alcohol and would get hurt on our property, and this is up to the 3 lawyers sitting here, are they going to sue us as the property owner that they got hurt on our property? Are they going to sue the city? If they do property damage, are they responsible? Are we responsible? Is the city responsible for that damage? I don't think that, I mean, if I read a little bit I read in the newsletter, the quarterly newsletter that comes out, that it was for the loop. We are definitely not in the loop of Sharonville. I think it needs to be, we need to be taken out of that. I don't know what the advantage is. The other question I have, if somebody, and I'm just going to throw a name out there, I don't know who's all involved in the door, what restaurants, bars are involved. I'm going to say, if the Blue Goose and somebody would bring the drink from the Blue Goose to our property, are we allowed to tell them, no, you're not allowed to drink on our property? I don't know. Or can they say, oh, the city designated that this is a legal place to drink?
Sure. So first of all, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there was a public hearing with regard to the DORA and the boundaries. So I'm sorry that you didn't.
We never got noticed.
This or didn't, I mean, there was. So we as council had to have a public hearing with regard to the DORA. So, and those DORA boundaries. So what you're talking a lot about are issues of private property. So there's nothing about the DORA that says someone can come onto your private property with alcohol or otherwise. So as far as property that belongs to you, your right to preclude people from coming onto your property has no effect from the DORA. So with respect to the boundaries and why they went past, our definition of loop does not just include the loop around Main Street and Reading Road. Most of the time when we talk about the loop, we're talking about our greater downtown area, going all the way up to La Rosa's, that concept up there, all the way down here to the city building. And one of the reasons why we look to encompass that area in the DORA is because we do have at least one restaurant, and we have other developable properties that are within that area that could benefit from the ability to have individuals to transport alcoholic beverages from one place to another, which is the purpose of the designated outdoor refreshment area. Now, I will say at this point, there really aren't, I don't think there is any at this point. Well, let me rephrase it. I think already probably is the only Rosa's and already.
But already still is still closing rather early.
So there are currently two entities within the DORA that actually sell and are participating in the DORA. We're hoping that ultimately the Blue Goose will come around and decide to become a part of that. Obviously, if Al's Bar opens up again, that is another entity that would be able to take advantage of that. The VFW would have been one of them, but obviously they have closed as well at this point in time. So the idea is to provide life and energy around our downtown Sharonville area. That's why we created the DORA. We're actually a little bit behind the times when it comes to incorporating these things, because there's many cities that have done so and have done so very successfully. But as far as issues of a person coming onto your property, you are as protected and within your rights to have people trespassed off your property as if it was not related to the DORA at all. But as far as why it reaches into the beyond that, past Sharon Road, on the way down to here, is because there are certainly other entities that exist connecting between there and here that will see and could see benefit from.
Well, I don't know what restaurant or what.
Athenian.
Athenian? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
They don't have a liquor license.
They don't need one. That's the purpose of the DORA. The DORA allows you to go down the Blue Goose or whatever establishment is selling a DORA beverage. It allows you to go buy a DORA beverage. And let's use Al's Bar, maybe a better example, because there's not really much food being served there. Go to Al's Bar, buy yourself a beer in your DORA cup, enjoy on a nice spring day, take a walk down Reading Road, and go get a gyro at Athenian while you're drinking your beer that you just bought down at Al's Bar.
Well, one of the problems I might see is somebody might get in their car and drive down.
Well, that exists whether it's a DORA or not.
I'm sorry?
That exists whether it's a DORA or not. People get behind the wheel. There's laws that prevent somebody from getting behind the wheel of a car with an open container. And that's what this is. This isn't a closed container. It's a plastic cup with a sticker on it. You can't do that. That's against the law.
Yeah.
It's against the law whether it's a DORA or it's against or not. So, I don't think anything we're doing by the establishment of a DORA or the boundaries of this DORA is going to encourage individuals to go out and drink and drive or drive around with an open container.
Just if I can just follow up with that. And Anna is trying to contact all the businesses for a sticker that you could put on your establishment as to whether you welcome Dora drinks into the establishment or if you don't welcome Dora drinks into the establishment. So.
Well, when I drove around, I don't see any sign down here that says the end of Dora.
The reason for that is Public Works initially placed it in air on the other side of the road. I noticed that, and they still have to move it on this side of the road. But there will be a sign right by City Hall.
Yeah. Well, and what about up Creek Road and up Cornell Road?
They all should be in place, but
I didn't see them. I mean, I may have missed them. I tried to look to see.
I think there's.
But I don't know. We never received the notice of a public hearing. I received other notices of public hearing. I received other notifications from the building department and so forth, but I'd never ever received a notice of a public hearing for Dora. And like I say, we are not happy with it. I don't know what can be done at this point, but you know, even if we got a notice and we would have showed up for the hearing, it almost sounds like, you know, you would have passed it anyway. So, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah, kind of build on Mr. Schmidt's comments. So I think it's great we put a sticker in the window of the business if they're going to participate or not. Could we offer up maybe something a little bit larger, some signage from businesses that don't want it so it's more visible, like no alcoholic beverages could be consumed on this premises, something to that effect that's a little bit larger, so it might deter some people from, they may not see the sticker on the windows, is what I'm getting at. Whereas if we had something larger that's a little bit more visible, it may help prevent some of that. Something to consider. Thank you.
It could, but I'm really having a hard time imagining someone going to a funeral home with a bar. I mean, with a beer. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right, Tim? I mean, we're
It's
talking
not
about,
just the funeral home.
So what else are we talking about?
It comes on down to Vern's Flowers, the rear end of the parking lot of Vern's Flowers.
Okay, so you're worried about people coming into your parking lot?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
And the other question I had when I sat down, then I had the question you mentioned about people getting a cup, a door cup or whatever. And then they are allowed to go into the Athenian and have lunch?
Yes, if Athenian is willing to allow that.
They don't need a liquor permit?
No. That's why that may not be able, I don't know, I'll have to look at that. They might not be able to go in, they might be able to eat, like right now they're dining out. There's tables in the parking lot. Do you know the answer to that, Jim? Are they able to go into an establishment with a Dora? I thought so too. So yeah, so someone can get a beer, and if Athenian says your Dora beverage is welcome here, they can go in and sit down at the counter and drink their beer while they enjoy some of their fine culinary establishments.
Fine Arts Center is another example. They're excited about the Dora during typical times because people would be able to bring in alcohol and watch a play.
Vern's Florist, any one of our retailers, Cliff's Hardware, if they want to welcome individuals into their retail establishments while they drink and sip on their beer, that's the whole purpose.
Rockefeller's is also very excited about the Dora. In fact, so much that they may even consider reaching out to get their own liquor permit now. Is what I was told.
I guess what my comment was for is if someone's cutting through Mr. Schmidt's property or they decide to sit on the steps or something like that, something to help deter that versus they don't have to continue to police it, I guess. So if there's some larger signage, right, most people would probably stay on the sidewalk walking down, but I could see people cut through your parking lot, or maybe they decide to hang out there. Maybe just something to help some signage to help deter that. It's not going to be foolproof by any means, but just a little bit extra assistance.
I just don't understand why it had to be passed. I mean, you have licensed liquor establishments and that's where they ought to drink. Yeah. Well, some of the property is residential property. You know, I mean, down this area on the west side of Reading Road is residential. I don't know. Can
you hear me? The way I understand it, you had to finish the beer before you went into the next establishment. You could take the beer to, say, like when the VFW is over, this is how the bartender explained it to me. You could take a beer out of there, but when you went to another Dora location or another location that wasn't a Dora location, you still had to finish the beer. You could not take the cup into the establishment. Like Athenians, you would have to finish it outside before you took it into the, it just got you to the next location. I think they were also looking at the car show and the, when we used to do the stuff downtown with the arts and crafts. I think that's what they're thinking the door is for.
Just Dora to Dora establishments, you have to finish the drink. So if somebody would have purchased a drink in the VFW and then went over to the Blue Goose, they would not be able to go into those types of establishments, but not non-Dora establishments. You couldn't go in, and if Cliff Hardware is allowing it, I don't know if they are or not, you could walk into Cliff Hardware with your drink, or Rockefeller's, or you don't have to finish it into non-Dora establishments.
I would say that we table it until March because it's getting cold and people aren't going to be walking around anyway. The whole point of this was, that we offer a welcoming environment during nice weather. And so all the stuff we're talking about right now, even if we talk to businesses or whatnot, it's not going to hold any weight unless we talk about it again in March.
I can't hear anybody. Are you asking for my report?
Yeah, we're talking into the mics.
I'm now hearing you.
Okay, well,
I don't have a report. I submitted the monthly report to Terry for community development, and I just want to wish everybody a safe and healthy Thanksgiving.
okay, thank you. Community Services, Mr. Lippert.
No report. We are not meeting in December. That was part of the published meeting schedule at the beginning of 2020. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Budget and Finance, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. I do not have a report, but what I will do or ask is at the end of the meeting, I'll get with Budget and Finance, the members, and then we'll set up a date and time for next week when we can meet. And I'll send that out to all the council members. I think it'd be helpful. the more the merrier on that particular subject.
And I'm going to suggest it not be Zoom. It's very difficult to meet and get any work done like that over Zoom.
Okay.
We can meet safely in here.
But we may still need the option for Zoom for those that cannot attend.
If they're quarantined.
Yes.
And a member.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Honored citizens, Mrs. Knight.
Yes, I'd like to, tonight I'm going to honor all the first responders and all the hospital workers. The reason why I'm not at the meeting is my mother has been tested positive, and being 91 years old, she cannot take care of herself. So I am her designated quarantine caretaker. I have tested negative. Bill has tested negative. So we have probably another week and a half before she'll start feeling better. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Sue. We'll keep her in our thoughts and prayers. And you and Bill. That's a tough job right there. Law and Public Safety, Mr. Schmidt.
Well, thank you. The next Law and Public Safety Committee meeting will be on December 8th at 4 o'clock. That will be before session with Kemper Road. And I don't know what else would occur there, but we're scheduled at 4 o'clock. That will be in chambers here.
Perfect.
Not Zoomed. It should be all present.
Okay, thank you. Rule suspension motion, first and only reading with 30-day effectivity for ordinances 2020-48 and 2020-54E. First and only reading effective immediately. Ordinance 2020-55E. Resolution 2020-R27E, Resolution 2020-R28E, and Resolution 2020-R29E. Is there a motion?
I'll take Mr. Lucas's suggestion and move to table Resolution 2020-R28E as moved.
Is there a second to remove Resolution 2020-R28E?
So moved.
All those in favor, yes? Those opposed, no? And that motion does carry. We will be removing that from our reports. Is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Lippert. Is there a motion for the rule suspensions? So moved by Mr. Lippert. Second by Mr. Schmidt. All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those opposed, no? And the motion carries. Unfinished business. Is there a way for them to raise their hand? I know in my normal.
Unfinished business. Third reading of Emergency Ordinance 2020-38E, directing the filing of verified petitions to appropriate various fee simple interests with reservation of access, standard highway easements, and temporary easements as a quick take for the public purpose of improving Hawk Road, a public roadway open to the public without charge in the city of Sharonville, Hamilton County, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2020-38E? So moved by Mr. Schmidt, second by Mr. Cook. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
I'm sorry, yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook, Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Emergency Ordinance 2020-38E has been approved. Third reading of Ordinance 2020-42, authorizing Safety Service Director to enter into a contract with CT Consultants to provide engineering and site plan review for calendar year 2021 and approving CT Consultants 2021 fee schedule.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2020-42? So moved by Mr. Lippert, second by Mr. Schmidt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-42 has been approved. This is a second and third reading of ordinance 2020-48, amending senior housing interfund loan repayment.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2020-48? So moved by Mr. Cook, second by Mr. Lippert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-48 has been approved. You ready for new business?
New business.
All right. First and only reading of ordinance 2020-54, an ordinance of the city of Sharonville, Ohio, authorizing employee hourly rates.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2020-54? So moved by Mr. Lippert, second by Mr. Cook. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I thought somebody was talking, sorry. Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt. Okay, ordinance 2020-54 has been approved. First and only reading of emergency ordinance 2020-55E, providing Christmas gifts for city employees in 2020 and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2020-55E? So moved by Mr. Lippert, second by Mr. Schmidt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt. Emergency ordinance 2020-55E has been approved. First reading of emergency ordinance 2020-56E, creating new business regulation code, chapter 731, nightclubs and nightclub promoters, and declaring an emergency. Next time. All right. First and only reading of emergency resolution 2020-R27E. Resolution opposing Ohio Senate Bill 352 and Ohio House Bill 754, which would repeal section 29 of Ohio House Bill 197.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2020-R27E?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Cook. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
All right, emergency resolution 2020-R27E has been approved.
We're skipping 28.
Thank you. That's what I was getting hung up on. All right, first and only reading of resolution 2020-R29E, resolution declaring intent to conduct internet auctions for the sale of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit city personal property during calendar year 2021.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2020 R29E? So moved by Mr. Lippert, second by Mr. Schmidt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution 2020 R29E has been approved. First and only reading of Resolution 2020 R30, commending and thanking the City of Blue Ash and Chief Chris Theaters for their gracious assistance to the citizens and fire department of the City of Sharonville.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2020 R30?
So
moved
moved.
by Mr. Cook, second by Mr. Schmidt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert.
With thanks to the city of Blue Ash, yes.
All right. Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt. Resolution 2020 R30 has been approved.
Any more residents that wish to be heard this evening? Is there any other matters to be heard before council this evening? Mr. Lippert?
Yes. I had a citizen ask me, does Sharonville allow Airbnbs?
No,
No?
no, you guys actually passed an ordinance against that.
Yes, we did.
Mr. Lippert?
So the law committee meeting was the longest yet most productive meeting I've been in attendance. I would implore you to please look over the nightclub chapter section. I know Jim and Mark worked really hard on it, and we put a lot of work in it too. So if you have suggestions before the second and third reading next council session, now's the time to talk about them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt?
I just wanted to comment. Two things. First is this first reading and then the second and third emergency is the pattern that the law committee would like to get into. So we always have a comment period between the reading and the second and third. We'll do it as an emergency. And then the second one is the law committee meeting started at 4 o'clock. When I was leaving the parking lot, it was 7 o'clock and the church bells were ringing. One of the longest meetings I think we've had. But a real quick comment. That meeting was probably, as you go through I was going to say, all the people that were there, everyone contributed. Now, historically, the business schools and the management schools will teach you, generally speaking, the first idea that you have or the first concept or the first suggestion is generally speaking never the best. Usually there have to be 7 iterations or 3 to 5 iterations. It becomes diminishing returns. But at that meeting, I was sitting where Mrs. Hoppy is right now, and you go all around the room and all the people, Mr. Doughton, the chief, the councilmen that were there, Tank was there, Sue, everyone contributed and said, have you considered, is this good enough? Should we do this? Is this clear? And it constantly went around the room with everybody adding their perspective. And there were very many different perspectives, which I thought was a fantastic idea. I would only tell all the people there that if you were Mr. Barngrover's class from the UC College of Business Administration, you all would have gotten an A+. Because the meeting really, think about how much we covered, how much was discussed, how many different perspectives were brought in, how many different considerations, including this now making sure that all who are going to be impacted know about it and have the opportunity to read it, study it, and come. And really, you don't get many examples. I like to always tell Kevin about the 5-year plan, what a case study that is in excellence if you looked at these MBA type schools, but also that meeting and the way that people conducted themselves, all the contributions that were made was absolutely classic and really one of the best examples of best practices I've ever seen. So my congratulations to all involved. It was a long, highly focused, very, very productive meeting, and thanks to all. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Shia,
And I'm sorry.
it would be very helpful if you are on Zoom, if you raise your hands, then I know you want to speak because they're raising their hands here in council. Shia, you had wanted the floor. Mr. Tankersley, I'll come back to you.
Yes, I wanted to bring up, last week I saw on the news of Fox 19, and I heard from Dave also that it's published in the Inquirer about our nails on the west side of Sharonville, nails affecting people's tires. And when I went around the west side to walk door to door, I noticed residents were showing me examples of the nails and the screws, and it's been going on, they're saying 2 to 4 weeks at least, and it's affecting Springdale residents, affected our police, and I know Mr. Lucas, our police chief, everyone knows about it, and they're doing their best. Our Public Works Department has bought these magnetic like sweepers so they can move this stuff, but hopefully we can catch the people who are doing it, because most residents think that it's purposeful, so hopefully that goes down. But multiple people on multiple streets like Valdosta, Fonvista, Chesterdale, Crescentville, and Algiers even are affected by these. So it's been going on for the past several weeks, so I want everyone to be aware. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duda. I appreciate you taking the time. Mr. Tankersley?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to thank Mark and Jim from the law committee meeting that was held. That, like Casey and Paul said, it was a very good meeting, and I want to again commend Mark and Jim with the work they did putting that together.
Thank you. Some feedback there. Okay, if there's nothing else to be heard this evening before council, we had a request to go into executive session. I need a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G3. I'm sorry, G1, to consider employment and discipline. All of those are invited, are all elected. Mr. Lucas and Mr. Powers, I see you back there now, sir. Sorry. You're hiding from us, aren't you? Okay, is there a motion? So moved by Mr. Lippard, second by Mr. Cook. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight.
Yeah.
Mr.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, we are now in executive session. We are only coming out to adjourn our meeting. Thank you.
Hey, Josh or somebody, can we talk about